Hello,
Hello.
there we are again,
There we are.
finally.
Thanks. Sorry about the volume at the beginning.
Ah,
Yeah. Today, pull
mm,
requests, code
yeah,
reviews. Javier, hello. It's been a while. It's nice to see you again.
important
Adrian,
topic.
yeah. Adrian, we see you now from a different camera angle.
Yeah, I'm still working on that, and I see a little bit of delay, I think. But yeah, I think that is acceptable for today. Yeah, it's
Works
actually
best.
because my other camera is not working as supposed, so I need to switch to that one. But yeah, this is not the topic for today. So we want to talk about code reviews, and we want to talk about pull requests in combination.
Mhm.
And that was actually no, that was the first streaming topic where we both were together on stream.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing back then, content wise. So I think I wrote 8 articles about that. I don't know, 8 videos, our stream, so much stuff actually. And the idea behind that was that it really annoyed me that so many processes where I was involved in one form or another was so, let's say, cumbersome because of this idea of Git. Let's say how you use Git, right?
It
So
ups.
doing
Yeah.
GitOps, right? So you're going into the idea of more, let's say, even Git flow in that moment, not GitOps. I would say Git flow, so that you actually have this opportunity as a developer to say, I push that right now, and someone else needs to take responsibility if my doing is actually good or not.
Mm.
So I don't have, and this is in combination with trunk-based development as well. I don't have on mind that I am the last person in line. I need to take responsibility that I don't break anything.
Yeah.
And this was the initial factor, the maturity factor, let's say the principle of ownership or taking
Mhm.
responsibility in that moment. So this idea of I put something into a branch, I make a pull request at best to someone who is on vacation right now, and then I don't need to bother with that changes anymore. I can go to the next ticket and hide my changes in isolation there as well. And
Mhm.
I saw that quite often, especially in the freelance space where so many freelancers were talking about this exactly, and that really annoyed me, to be honest. To oh, just to listen, to those things, to those stories, was already annoying for me. And I was thinking, hey, yeah, even when you think of trunk-based development and continuous delivery, there is the idea of code reviews as well. But how can you actually improve that? For me, the answer was to just do it in a very natural way. So you have done something, you have finished the task, and you want to have feedback. What are you going to do? Of course, you ask for feedback. So you go to the next person, you go to the colleague. Exactly. So my thumbs up is somehow there, and then you get feedback. So it's about 3 5
I
minutes
would.
something, right?
I would,
And
I
then
would even
you're
challenge.
done.
I would even challenge that. PRs usually asking for feedback, right? So dropping pull requests in your process is a very simple way of how to speed up delivery without negatively impacting your quality.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean your quality will be good, but it won't make the quality significantly worse.
Hmm.
Because what PRs don't do, they don't put quality into the code.
Hmm.
It's too late. Only pull
Yeah.
requests which are so bad that they get rejected and they have to be deleted and restarted, only those pull requests would put quality into the code where it would have otherwise been absent. Because the quality that goes into the code, and quality can be: is it test covered? Is it small? Is it simple? Is it documented? Does it cover important corner cases? Is it architecturally sound? Has it been checked for regressions? Does it actually provide value to the end user? Do we understand how it's going to be used? It has feature flags. It has removed old feature flags. It was refactored to some degree.
Hmm.
There were several people touching the code base, right? So it wasn't from a single author. So the code, the diff that came in, the commit, the branch, whatever you might call it, the artifact that's being reviewed, has multiple authors. So bus factor is not one. That's all quality, and that quality is coming from the sort of standard level of professionalism and ability from the team. If that is lacking, well, guess what? The person reviewing is from exactly the same culture. So if you're at this level and the person reviewing is at the same level, if they're reviewing your code after it was written, well, guess what? The quality won't go up. The quality also won't go down significantly. The quality might be very bad compared to some ideal, but it's too late to put that into perspective, because the best way, so why do we say drop PRs? Well, we say drop PRs and pair program. So you put the quality in the first place. Yes, it will take more time, but the quality will go up. And the key idea here is that your team needs to learn what does quality look like in their team, so they get a gut feeling, an intuition for what quality am I capable of, what levels of quality am I capable of, and how much do they cost. So that going forward, they can deliberately have a conversation of how much, right? How good? How good do you want it? Why? What's the target? What's the standard of quality for this feature? What's the standard of quality overall for this project? What's the standard of quality overall for this product? What is the standard expectation of quality from this team, from this leader, from this manager, from this department? And then that's a high-performing team once you get there.
And everything you just mentioned is something you can define. So it is something which you can write down into a playbook, into a definition of done sheet or something like that. And you can go through that yourself like a checklist. So have I done this? Have I done that? Is that actually a match to our architecture? If I don't understand if what I've just have written and I'm about to push it to trunk, right? And if I'm not able in that moment to determine if this is matching the ideas of the architecture, then I'm not allowed to push anyway. So I need to consult someone because I'm incapable of doing my work. And that's important to understand. So code reviews are not like a gatekeeping mechanism where another developer is telling, yeah, what you've done is actually okay, maybe we can pass it. No. It's the idea of code reviews is actually to have a review to get feedback what you can do better next time. So you don't need that as a mandatory thing in between you and the push, right? What you need to have is, first of all, not always review. So you don't need to have the 5th review for the very same thing on the 5th day again. You don't need to have that. This is basically unnecessary. It's you don't need that. It's waste of time.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and what you actually need to do is make sure that you as a developer, who an engineer in that moment, right, who is doing something new, and that could be something which changes what others are then doing on top of that changes the UX, it changes the outcome, the performance. And I want to have a second pair of eyes taking a look on what I've just done, especially someone who is maybe a little bit more competent than I do. And in that moment, I want to have this feedback. Then I just go and ask. This is the very best thing. You are right now in your context. You don't need to wait for someone who has some time, maybe in the next day, hopefully, maybe next week, because it's already Friday. You have totally forgotten where you are. This person never were where you are. You can't translate because you have forgotten as well. So you both sit there and actually we need to do something different. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, it looks great, right? So you need to have the motivation, the intrinsic motivation to do this right in that moment. To pull someone in, say, hey, we need to do this right. I have this problem here. What do you think about that? This and that. Or maybe I can change this. Okay, Get this done right now. This needs to be done right now, not postponed into the future in any way. That's what I think.
I see. So in my experience, I've worked with a lot of teams. And generally, PRs get in the way, not the process. So I think we have to define exactly. PRs are a tool. Pull request is a tool. Pull request is something you create, usually on your GitOps tool of choice, GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever you're using. A pull request is a signal that I have a branch, I want it merged into this branch, and I want another human to be involved in this process. Sometimes they can be self-reviewed. Hugh mentions, isn't there some AI thing that can evaluate the quality of code? Yes, Google actually did create an AI that internally, so they trained an AI on their own code. And the only thing it does, it creates comments for violations of standard practice. So it won't do any architectural reviews, it won't do any security reviews. It'll only check violations of standard practice. Is it missing a test? Is it named in a weird way? Is it written in a style that is inappropriate for a certain segment? And what they found was that they required different tools for different projects because certain teams have different ways of doing things. So they had to sort of localize how the AI is evaluating certain things. Most of them are okay. Some of them are actually rejected for inaccuracy. And this Google's tool for like AI reviews, they only give like surface level suggestions. So Google, having spent a lot of money on training it, created a tool that saves thousands of hours because they have tens of thousands of pull requests per day.
Yeah.
But it's not a significant shift. It's a cost saving for menial code review time spent. It doesn't significantly improve the quality of the code. It just makes the boring review parts less intense. So it's a cost saving. So they invested a lot of money to save a few percentages on something that is, scaled to, for reference, Google has somewhere between 200,000 and 250,000 engineers. So any kind of like small percentage changes in the code review times have huge implications, which is not the case for you if you have 50 employees, right? Plus, in relative terms, training such an LLM locally and running it in real time is extremely expensive. It takes millions to train an LLM to that degree. And even if you're using ChatGPT, API, if you have to feed it your constant code base constantly, that's going to be expensive as well. And you won't get the money back. Your ROI is not positive.
I know a lot of teams who would be very annoyed about this AI constantly writing comments there because I think
if you want something equivalent, just install CodeScene. Just install CodeScene. It costs what?
It helps a lot. Yeah.
$150, and then something extra per seat, per team, per.
But you need to have someone who's interpreting that for you. So it's not like self-explaining for someone who never used code analysis or static code analysis.
It is quite self-explaining. It gives you like a huge comment and that says, "Here's what I found. Here's the problem. This is violating that code."
Yeah. For example, you just start an application in an unexperienced team. I saw that by the way.
No. Just for Greenfield.
And then you start and you say, all is good. We are doing correctly. So you don't do correctly. You will see that in 3 months that your graphs are going down and down and down, and you have laid the wrong foundation in that moment already. And this is what we need to understand in that moment, that we still, and this is maybe an answer for Rage King as well, from my side, it is important that you have a team which cares. Right? You need to be a professional team. So everyone in the team should have some form of creed or credo to really say, I want to do that in that quality. Every form of AI, every form of static code analysis, you need to still execute that and write it correctly. You need to be willing to learn something out of that. And even if you have just a pair programming session with someone from inside or outside of your company, and this person is telling you something, you need to be able, open-minded enough to take this and make something out of it. I see so many people resisting. You really try to help them. The CEOs are paying money to learn something, the coaches, and afterwards people still trying to resist and find ways to get back to the old stuff they made before.
Well, you have some people in the audience. Let's ask them. Yeah. So Hugh, which is Rage King, Brian Finster, Kaloyan, we have Javier in chat from ThoughtWorks. Ryan Savage from Walmart. No, Ryan commented. Oh, that was 20 hours ago. I think Brian used to work with Ryan. No, we need to check up on that. But he had a question. So what do you guys use? How do you guys review code? How do you guys ensure quality? Once you've ensured quality, how do you inspect it? Like, what did you find? Because I just mentioned 6 people from 6 organizations. I would wager that everybody uses something else. How do you call your diffs, your codes, your code changes, your code reviews, your branches, your pull requests, your merge requests? What's your approach? What's your process? And how do you review code? And then we can talk a little bit more about pull requests. Kaloyan mentions, I have to read Kaloyan's comment because I think he has a response to one of my comments earlier. He says, it's not necessary to have someone more competent look at the changes. Any other peer, or even someone with less experience, can give you a good and interesting feedback in the code review process. Mm-hmm. So I agree if you're doing the code review for the right reason, right? So if I followed my standard, I can show the code to you to check, hey, I'm the author, I'm biased. What do you think? Right, so just having somebody else other than the author look at the code will always give you a lot of information about, is this readable? Does this make sense? Did I over-engineer something? But my issue is that if you're doing pull requests due to gatekeeping, you're implying that the gatekeeper has a more significant role in this relationship, or at least that there is a transfer of ownership from you wrote it, I, through the review, make sure that it is safe to deploy, or rather that it is non-invasive to deploy, that if I deploy it, it won't suddenly crash something, right? So usually what you would do is a tech lead or founding engineer grows into a role. They are the only one deploying to production. They hire an engineer to code more so that they scale their own coding, and then they produce stuff, and then they make sure it's safe to deploy. That is a dysfunction number one that I see the most.
That's often. A degeneration of your own capabilities in that moment.
And it's wasting your time. It's wasting their time. It's infantilizing them. It's preventing their growth. It's disrespectful. It's definitely not in any way useful to their growth as an engineer, because they won't learn. They won't learn if they do it the wrong way, and then you give them feedback on that. To learn, they have to watch you do it the right way, and then they have to try to do it the right way, right? So there is a difference in learning. I'm just going to take the comment off since we zoomed in. There's a difference in how you learn. If what you're trying to do is to improve yourself and you fall short, versus doing it the wrong way and getting feedback on it. If you're constantly doing the wrong way and you're just getting feedback on the wrong way, the path to the right way is larger than if you had aimed at the right way and missed. Right? So, for example, what analogy can I use? Let's say chess.
Kitchen analogy.
No,
always
chess,
the kitchen.
Chess.
Oh. Chess. Okay.
If you're playing at 1000 elo, if you're behaving like a player who plays at 1000 elo and you want to improve, well, the solution isn't to just randomly play and then get feedback on your play. It's a very slow path of improvement, because you actually have to accidentally make the right mistakes to get the right lessons. The problem is you never practice implementing the solution to the lesson, because you never practice implementing the solution on the right time.
You never challenge yourself.
You're only challenged in correcting the wrong solution. So you're being entrained or even entrapped in producing the wrong solution and then fixing it quickly rather than producing the right solution the first time. Whereas if you're a 1000 elo player who wants to play like a 1.2k elo player, you would want to basically learn from somebody who's at that level, change your strategy before going into the game, and then see how well you did. Because usually what will happen is you will start playing worse than 1k, and then you'll grow rapidly. So it has these phases of it jitters goes down a bit, and then it goes up, and then it stays at this level. Then it jitters goes down a bit, and then it goes up, and then it stays at this level. You
I see
can't
that.
get
I see that in team coaching quite a lot, to be honest, because
it's primarily-
people are struggling in the first moment and thinking, "Oh, I
And it
can't
gets
do
worse
that
before
anymore."
It gets
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Even experienced developers, like 5 years of experience right now, in their own text, like they are very fluent, typing fast, have their own stuff, and suddenly when they need to learn something new, they tend to type slow, and it looks a little bit like they losing the context quickly and fast. This is the moment where you actually start to challenge yourself, and there is much going on inside you. This is a good sign, right? So you shouldn't be afraid of that in that moment. This is just because you have talked about this dropping before you're actually raising. And I would even consider, you had this example, if you want to, this is example, if you want to get to the moon, aim for the stars. And this is, I think, the very same. So you always should go for a challenge. And software development is actually a challenge. So I find it challenging still today. So we need to figure out. We had today a little outage of an S3 bucket, and it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of stress for several people, just a simple outage, right? And it was a very, very specific thing. And it's every time those challenges, they make you a little better. So you learn new things. You get review, you get you get feedback from the process you're in right now. So the things you discuss there, you wouldn't have discussed those things if there would be an outage. And the very same thing is if you say, I want to go into a journey with a team to understand how to get better, right? And let's roll back a little bit to the original topic, which is code reviews. Why do you need to have code reviews packed into some pull request, postponed into the future to someone else? So you're actually passing your own responsibility, your own challenge to someone else. That's not smart, to be polite. That's not smart. You shouldn't do this. If you want to become better in what you do, you should be able to say, okay, I'm really thinking about that right now. Can I push that? Can I commit that even, right? Commit. So what is the word commit? So, don't be inflationary here. The word commit means you commit yourself, your changes to the current trunk, to your team. And if you know there might be errors inside, I haven't looked because there's someone reviewing, you are not a team player. Please leave the team now and go.
Can you give us an example from, you work with a lot of teams. I think you had a full day workshop last week.
Actually, several of those.
Several of those. Can you give us some examples?
That's the reason why I have some and examples. So it's a little bit like so maybe not on those. This wasn't the primary topic there. This was more to learn those things. But I see this resistance so often where engineers, let's say, I wouldn't even say engineers in that moment, because this is actually my personal differentiation between engineers and pure coders, right? So the engineering aspect is the art of what you do above that, the process, the environment, the ideas, the practices, all those kind of things, the quality standards you have for yourself. And you want to get there from some time. You start with your career, your coding, your junior developer, and you are just a coder person, right? You're just able to code something. You don't know why you're actually doing this, because you got this task from someone who knows why, but you don't know yet. So you are not a junior engineer. You aren't, sorry. It is something very weird in our industry to call it like that. Engineering, so just if you want to become an engineer by title, it takes you at least 6 years of learning, right? Doing that correctly. So you can't do that just because you have now 2 weeks code, writing code in your disposal. So you need to get from this point where you start to develop credibility, and this credibility is actually by taking responsibility and ownership. This is what you need to do. You need to make sure that what I commit will go to my team, and I need to face that. And if I can't do that right now, it is an urgent thing to do, to consult someone right now and tell the person, I can't do that, help me. But this is actually about the idea of the code review, because the code review is originally not there to actually make you capable of pushing something. It's just to give you feedback for the future. So if you are not capable right now, that's a dysfunction in the team.
And one of the most common comments, challenge let's say challenge, not, I wouldn't call it resistance straight away, but let's say challenges to this idea of dropping pull requests is people say, leaders say, well, it's how I mentor my team, you know, and my answer is, it was usually soft, okay, cool, but there are better ways. Nowadays, I'm saying, look, if you're really serious about mentoring your team, there are better ways. Like you're not doing your best. You can do better. Like pull requests are, sorry for saying this like so directly, but they're the least caring way of training your engineers. Because it's too late, it's too little. They're in a rush by that time, and they're this handoff mentality of, now I've solved the problem and now you teach me something. No, teach me something while I'm solving the problem, or even better, teach me something new, and then let's challenge me to solve the problem using the new thing I learned, and then give me feedback. Then give me feedback on how I applied the new learning, not how I solved the feature. Because one of the things I ask always when somebody pays me to just come in and review something, it's rare, but I used to do this a lot, where they would just hire me as a consultant hourly. I already have a pre-signed NDA with them, and I would come in similar to what Brian mentions here, right? So code review is often a requirement for compliance to prevent things like the Superman hack, where you have a malicious actor within the team, or it's an open source project and everybody can contribute. So there's this barrier between who can write and who can sort of responsibly accept changes to the code base. And when people come to me and they ask me, hey, Dennis, can you review this? I always ask them, what are we optimizing for? Are we optimizing for getting this to production as soon as possible? Are we optimizing for your learning? Or are we optimizing for a specific quality, like readability, testability? You know, so this usually happens a lot in TDD coaching, but I also see it happen constantly when there's just a common dysfunction regarding how architecture was sort of adopted or not adopted in the team. So it's this core idea that, what are we optimizing for? Are we optimizing for learning? Are we optimizing for improving something? Because what I don't want to do is to encourage engineers who are on the same team to open up 800 lines of code pull requests and then review everything. Because not everything has to be reviewed. See, when I ask for a review, I'm asking for something very specific. It's like, hey, is it readable? Does it make sense? Do you understand it? Would you be willing to take ownership of this if I was absent? That's what the review is for. Did I miss something obvious? What it's not for is for you to criticize and nitpick every single line of code. But usually that's what it invites.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is, I've seen heat maps. I have seen heat maps of teams that I've coached, and the reviews are usually review heavy on the top of the review, depending on how the tool sorts the order of files. So people review it top to bottom. If you open it up in GitHub, they will review it top to bottom, which is a huge disservice, because I think it sorts it by commit, by last change alphabetically, which means that it's completely random whether they actually review the right thing if the PR is too large.
So let's talk a little bit about, let's design this as a 3x structure. So we discussed the problem right now. So what can we actually do better? So try to get to the point where we talk about the good things. So for example,
we define the problem. The problem is PRs are not the best way to put quality into your system. We proposed a solution where we said, if you drop the PRs and you just tackle code reviews a different way, then that is sort of freeing you up to be more agile, lowercase agile, or rather to retain your maneuverability.
I just don't want to be that polite. I think PRs are damaging your process and not,
Yes,
they're damaging your process.
Yes, so there is a specific workflow where PRs are harmful. Last year, I was coaching very long term, a very specific team in a very specific problem area. And one of the goals we set was that they want to adopt TDD. initially on the critical paths, and then sort of learn how to write tests, how to design tests, how to architect differently, how to think differently, how to be more continuous, more in the continuous delivery camp, and less so in the, oh my god, everything's burning and we're being sort of buried with customer support tickets. And one of the things we found is that when we were ensembling together, so mob programming together as a team, as a unit, the PRs got in the way. So we had this artificial separation of, let's write something, and then somebody at some point will deploy it. Why? Well, because opening the PR and reviewing it, possibly even checking it out on your own machine and merging it and running tests is a complete context shift, to the degree that somebody says, no, after the meeting, after we're done, I'll do it alone, because it's such a disruption in my process. It's such a disruption on my computer to switch branches, to review, to switch the editor, to leave comments in the pull request tool. So I said, well, let's just review it now. I'll open it up. I was hosting the call, right, with Code With Me, with the IntelliJ ecosystem. I open it up. Let's review it now. And when it's happy, let's merge it. Let's not open a pull request. Let's merge it. We have 5 people on the call right now. Context is here. And what we found is that there were certain processes which are there benevolently. Brian even mentions that, you might require it for compliance. Sure, we can create the pull request. But all I need is that the 5 people who are here, we can review it, merge it, we can review it, approve it, merge it, and be done with it on the call. And we are now all
James Gallienne is featuring those self-signing PRs a little bit. So the group would review it and self-sign it in that moment. You can do that alone for yourself actually as well.
Yeah, and if you're pair programming using Code With Me or some other tool, if you have Git integration directly in IntelliJ, the Code With Me tool will pick up on which author was driving, so who was writing the code. And if it picks up multiple authors physically touching the file, then it'll also co-sign the 2 authors in the commit. So if you then open up this commit in a tool like GitHub, it'll have 2 authors on one commit. So, and that already paves the way for you to create automation that says, hey, if this was co-written at the same time, so it's not one branch that has commits from 2 authors, because you would still have to cross-review each other's commits. But if one commit was created by 2 authors at the same time, I would say, yeah, at least that commit was reviewed. The issue with pull requests is something else in this context. The issue with pull requests is that it might have 10 commits, and the first commit was reviewed, but the other 9 weren't. And then it's very hard to keep track of these things. That's also another mechanical issue with pull requests, is that once they get rejected or blocked, or they act as a gatekeeper towards merging with run-based, the response to a rejected pull request code review is another commit on top of it, and the author can decide to squash, rebase, right? So they can destructively restructure the pull request, which makes the second review very confusing. Should I review everything again? Like, how much did you change? Should just the commit? Did you rebase anything? Right. So it's this waste of like artificial synthetic work on top of work that is already quite complex, which is the original development of the feature of the pull request. And I find that pull requests just create way too much distraction in this space. So with that team that I mentioned in the example, we had to sort of work towards this idea that no, it's okay to create a pull request and self-merge, and that's fine. Like, nobody has to sort of leave the meeting to then do it asynchronously, because their belief was that no, it's that disruptive thing that I do after lunch when I'm too tired, and I just do it asynchronously on my own. And they weren't used to it. Like, they were so anathema.
You lose so much,
What happened? That's a GoPro. That's a GoPro intro screen. I recognize that. Did it overheat? You told me you got the model that doesn't overheat. I have your comment in mind. You said there's
I forgot something other. Wait a second. I think. Come on.
Just keep in mind, if you have recordings the menu will show your recording previews and thumbnails, so I'll just keep it.
My God, no, I'm
I
complete.
used to use GoPros for calls.
Go on, and waffle a little bit about the comments. I'm there in a second.
So actually, what I want to do is we had a very first comment off stream, which is quite unusual. So I will repost Ryan Savage's comment, just so I can put it on the screen. So Ryan mentions, I'm currently working on coming up with a list of requirements, guidelines for PRs, and pushing really hard to keep the requirements to principles that are always necessary in code review to avoid shoehorning people into PR practices that could be easily avoiding and even improved upon by just doing something like pairing. Looking forward to the discussion and wonder if you can even try to think of what you would consider necessary standards for every code review. I like how Ryan, hey, are you with us, Ryan, now?
And on Twitch even.
No, that's
He
me.
found us
That's
on
me.
Twitch. Ah,
No, that's me. He posted on LinkedIn. I posted it in chat here so that I can put it on screen. Yeah. And I like the distinction he made between code review and pull requests. Like, that's really important. Like, that's also what this episode is about. It's like, hey, stop doing pull requests. Just do code reviews in a simpler way. Like a pull request is the sledgehammer code review. It is the slowest, least effective way of doing code reviews, but it is the only one that guarantees eyes on target. For Ryan is here, awesome. So pull requests are the slowest eyes on target approach to having sort of a second set of eyes for compliance reasons or to sort of read through, but you have no guarantee. You have no guarantee that it has actually been read. You can only stamp that one person, the reviewer, vouches accountability. So if I open the pull request and I say approved, the assumption is that I have read it. Now, if I have not read the entire pull request, shame on me, right? I'm still accountable, right? So I can't.
But how do you feel? How do you feel as a developer if you actually get a pull request of, I don't know, 100 changes of a system you don't really know, of a feature which was created without you being there in place, and no one is there to explain why it's there. So it is so unnecessary in that moment to waste your time with that.
That's the typical LGTM. Looks good to me, right? You get 10 lines of code pull requests. People nitpick everything.
Yeah. 50 comments. Backlog not deployed. They basically argue, but 100 commits. No problem. Looks very good.
Looks good. Awesome.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. Finally. Right.
Yes, finally.
You really became good, right? But we have Friday. It's evening. I go home now. Goodbye. It's okay. Merge.
Okay. Igor has the first comment that we haven't gone through yet. Love the conversation, he says. In my opinion, the code sniffers should be enough as a mandatory step. The human code review must be optional and be on request when the author wants a second opinion. Making code review a necessary step means there is no trust within a team. Agreed with the second part. I would disagree with the first part.
With the first part?
Yeah, with the first part. Like,
so maybe we define what code sniffers are, so maybe we're thinking of different things.
So it's like running your linter in like a pre-commit hook or pre-merge hook or...
I'm thinking of Husky in the TypeScript world.
Yeah. PHP Stan in PHP, running things like ESLint.
So when Husky is going through lint and running the test locally and making sure everything is working, everything is formatted correctly, and all this kind of stuff, and you as a person say, "I'm okay. I'm willing to commit now. Commit." So think about the word commit. That's for me okay, and then the pipeline will give me maybe a end-to-end test running, something like that. Will give me some additional feedback on that. We will merge, integrate it with the stuff of the others in that moment. That's okay for me. That's okay for me.
That's it. Hugh mentions all devs. So from his own situation, Hugh says all devs launch PRs to the chief engineer. He makes sure it's clean, but honestly, I'm not a dev, so I can't evaluate if he's doing a good job or not. So This attitude of I can't evaluate whether they're doing a good job or not, this will continue trickling down your organization vertical, right? So what you would really want to do is, what would happen if the devs reviewed the chief engineer's code? Would the standard be the same? Because that's really what we want to get to, right? If the standard junior engineer reviews the chief engineer's code, the resulting quality should be the same as if the chief engineer reviews the junior's code. Because if they're pair programmed together, their output can be influenced in such a way that the two of them working together will... Imagine this, chief engineer and junior. They work together, they pair consistently, week over week, regardless of whose ticket it is, the code produced is about the same. Regardless of whose ticket it is. They work together, so it's a little bit more intense. The time efficacy is quite different. They use time differently. Compared to the alternative scenario where the chief engineer works on his own tickets and the junior engineer works on his own tickets, his or her tickets, and then they review each other's work. In this scenario, the time efficiency of like how busy they were was, let's say, much more efficient, or at least it was spent much faster. The hours, you can also think of time as fuel. When everybody's working alone, you're spending time faster. Which is not necessarily a good thing. But the junior engineer's code that was reviewed by the chief engineer will be of a different quality than the chief engineer's code reviewed by the junior engineer, because they were working alone. And it's that inconsistency that's important to really get a rein on. Not the fact about how you're reviewing. It's the inconsistency of the standards in the first step when the code was actually created, or even prior to the code was created. Because maybe if they were working together, their action plan of what's the code might have been different, depending on whether they pair or work alone. And that's what pairing gets right. When you are pairing, the obviously bad solutions don't even get written the first time. That's the really big power there, right? So yes, you're spending time less efficiently in a way, but you're not building the wrong software in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, you limit the amount of, let's say, distasteful software that you would otherwise shut down in a code review.
I would like to quickly announce something. We will offer a seat today, maybe two even. Let's take a look. So if anyone in the audience is willing and able to join us with camera and microphone and wants to participate on the topic for some minutes, so let's say time frame 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that, just chat to us, leave a comment, or contact us on LinkedIn. Exactly. Yeah. We will invite you, send you a link, and then you can talk about that. Okay, let's go again with Javier does have a good comment. PRs best practices usually suggest to have some small PRs to make them easy to review and also to push for small steps. And this is exactly what was missing in the very beginning.
I have a great story on this. Sorry.
Go ahead. But yes, the small batch sizes actually, right? So the smaller things are, the easier it becomes to actually, digest them, understand them fully. But even then, I would say that the smaller they get, the less review they need. Because when you do that in small steps for yourself and you commit in small steps, you think in small steps about every iteration you do. Can I commit that? Is that okay? Is that working? The less need you have to get immediate feedback on the headline change you did in front end right now, right?
That's really hard. It's really hard. And I have a great story. And it connects with this comment from Gary, who was a hot join a few weeks ago. He asked, has anybody played with CodeRabbit? But more importantly, you've just described really good practices for doing some PRs. I don't think the problem is the PR, the pull request. The problem is the way they are managed. And that's exactly it. Who did we have on screen just now? Regarding what was the previous comment we had?
This one.
Javier, yeah, sorry. So Javier and Gary have a really, really important detail about small PRs and workflow. And I have a great story about this with like a really short-term client that just asked me for advice. A tech lead asked me for advice on this. I sort of sat in and shadowed one of their meetings, and they had this. They said, let's do small PRs. Let's do small PRs. It'll make them easy to review. What were they missing? What do you think they were missing?
A lot comes to my mind, but I'm not sure if I have
missing.
your point right now.
They
So now,
didn't-
let me quickly, before you say that, my point would be, if you have a lot of reviews and small reviews, you even bother people more, especially if you do that in an asynchronous way. So imagine you will basically create a second backlog you are not able to work down, because if you would do a review in a responsible way, so that you are actually, let's say, up to liable for that, what you actually have done to your code base, then you need to review it correctly. And if you have 20 things of your team on your backlog and you need to still do 20 things on your own until end of week, you have a problem there. This is stress and burnout recipe. Okay,
That's
let's
a
go
waste.
ahead. There's a waste.
The important part they were missing, and this is hinted by Gary's comment, they didn't have a strategy what to do with large PRs. And I told them, well, you said, okay, do small PRs, okay, what do you do if I submit a large PR?
You
Well,
shut down.
slap on the wrist and let's review it. No. I said, delete the branch. Because it's too late, right? It went without integration for too long. So what do you want to do? Now you're going to create artificial semi PRs for, like I have one branch. Do you want me to create like 7 different PRs?
It is extremely
So
dangerous
because
to merge old branches into, because
exactly
all the
and
work you
problem
have
was-
done is in danger since then.
And the problem
yeah,
was
it is.
they were used to working in isolation without integration, and they tackled the PRs too early. See, their engineers didn't know how to work in small steps. Their engineers didn't have a pipeline that is sane and simple. They had a pipeline that is large and complicated. So they wanted to interact with the large and complicated and slow pipeline as little as possible, which is why they did large PRs. So then when you tell them do small PRs instead, and they don't have a strategy for what to do if once the PR becomes large, they continue doing large PRs. Because there's no negative incentive, no punishment, no discipline, there is no negative or positive incentive to changing anything. It just virtue signals, yeah, good, small PR is good, large PR is bad, yada yada, let's continue whatever we were doing. Because it does not address the resistance, the level of professionalism, the level of skill, the level of competence, the level of responsibility within the team. And everybody can just avoid, the initial resistance kicks in. They can just avoid the obvious thing, and they just continue whatever they were doing before. Because obviously what I told them was extreme. It's like, well, if the PR becomes too large, I know from evidence that you will never merge it. Like, you have to stop everything and invest 2-3 engineers' time for 2 weeks to octopus merge the large branch. Because that's what you've been doing. That's what you've been complaining about. So I said, if define a point of no return. Once you reach it, once the PR is this large and has never been reviewed and never merged, you delete this PR. And you delete the branch. And you tell the developer, oops, sorry, start again from scratch. Start from a fresh branch, copy over what you can, make it stable, and then open a small PR. And they were
one at a time. But maybe
one at a time, yes. And
but
then
maybe
stop working on it. And
if
then
you're
say
already
yes to
there,
the-
maybe leave the PRs out, because maybe you don't need them.
Because they are in a shitty situation. So all of their alternatives are bad. All of their alternatives are slow. Right? So I told them, deliberately pick the slow alternative that will teach the team to do it the right way. Right? But then they say, no, that's really slow if we delete everything and do it again. Yes, but otherwise they'll never learn. The team has to learn. The team has to overcome resistance, right? And the team is signaling what? The team is signaling that they need more punishment. That sounds a bit harsh and very sort of juvenile or academic in a way. But they are signaling that there are rules and the rules are sort of like laws. They're not forces. You know, you can't choose, hey, I'm not going to follow gravity. Gravity is a force. A law I can break, but then I need to be policed about, you know, which laws have to be policed in what way, what is the punishment, you know, how severe is the offense, what is the punishment compared to the offense. You know, we have police for a reason, right? We have police because the laws are soft. Laws are not forces. If I build a wall, that's a force. It's very hard to climb a wall. If I draw a line, the line requires a law, and the law requires a policeman, right? So if you're not putting any force or enforcement or inspiration into your engineering culture improvements, well, then you need to police people.
This
And
is
if
the
you're not
credo,
policing
the
them-
credo what I was initially talking about. Without a creed, you are not an engineer because you don't follow any rules. So you just code
Exactly.
something. So if everyone just codes as he thinks it's best, then you end up with, you know, a way too many recipes of way too many chefs in a kitchen. So having a kitchen analogy here. So it is
yes.
simply not working. The entire process will not work. And then, you know, they have 5 people of 6 working in small batches, and then after 1 month, suddenly one appears and says, "Hey, I have this large one here, but we need to get this done because the CEO wants to have it tomorrow, right?" And then someone, you know, rebase because they're used to rebasing, the others are using to squash merge or something like that. And you have this mix, and suddenly the history of this this branch isn't really fitting together anymore. And you basically delete things you already have approved. That's not good. You shouldn't do this. Once a day, you should at least once a day integrate with the others. This is what you should do, right? So we have someone on board. Okay, make your guesses. And there he is.
Hey, Kalyan.
Hello.
Okay.
Kalyan in the middle.
I had the same
Yeah.
thought.
There we go.
Yeah.
Welcome.
3 beards and 2 pair of glasses.
3 bears, 1 stream.
Yeah.
Kalyan, your thoughts so far?
Oh, that is one of my favorite topics, and perhaps you both know that's how I initially started following Igbo, because way back at the end of last year, there was a similar discussion about how to handle code reviews and PRs. And for me, that's work in progress, because there isn't one size fits all type of an approach when it comes to code reviews, because teams have different maturities. You might be in a team full of seniors, of people with a lot of domain knowledge. You might be in a mixed environment where there are juniors, people with more experience, and you all have to work as a team. And then to make things even more complicated, I used to work on a project that was a legacy PHP e-commerce platform,
Nice. That's my jam.
which had a lot of mothers and fathers over the years, right? Everybody contributes with
That's a
the
nice way of
code
putting
base.
it.
Yeah,
The child was
So-
hand off quite often. Yeah.
right. So code reviews were not just a way to ensure that what you've done passes the smell test, so that it's readable, it's understandable, that there is enough investment in it, so that in the future people will, as they used to say in school, what the author really meant here, right? So
Yeah,
that's part
yeah.
of the code review process. But the other one is on a legacy system. Unfortunately, there are gatekeepers, right? If you are somebody with a lot of professional experience, but with not that much domain knowledge
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
legacy platform you're working on,
But that's
code
good.
reviews are an
That's
excellent
good.
way.
I wouldn't file that as a negative. Somebody who has domain knowledge and they just lack the capacity to share, or rather, you know what's the problem with domain knowledge? The problem with
No,
domain knowledge is when
That's
I have domain
historical,
knowledge,
right?
and if I have domain knowledge, and there's 10 engineers, I might not want to share all of my domain knowledge all the time with all 10 of them. So I will share my domain knowledge on a need-to-know basis, depending on which engineer tackles something in the area of the code base that touches my domain, which is great. Code reviews are great for that, but you don't need pull requests, I think, for that process.
There are also nuances, right? Where, and I think in every domain is like this. There are things which are counterintuitive, right? They are right,
Yeah.
but they seem wrong. And if you don't have the context, you're going to do the wrong thing trying to do it right.
Yeah,
And again,
and
contributors
what's
are an excellent
worse,
way to find this.
and what's worse, you'll do the wrong thing with good intentions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it triggers that Dunning-Kruger, like you just be overconfident in a code base you don't know, and rather than being, sort of pessimistic and sort of a little bit hands off, you'll just steamroll. Oh, this is really easy.
This is the aspect where I'm always thinking, saying that you should communicate with your team, collaborate, right?
Yeah.
So it is not about handing off some artificial PRs or something like that, but talk to the people. So you need to spread the knowledge, Kaloyan, you are talking about. So you have the knowledge in the team about the history of the code. So maybe we were already in some form of problem because we have done things like that. But we need to know in that moment. And you only need to know if you start to talk with others and discuss with others. So you can't just have that, or this knowledge is not transferred via comments somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is not enough, in my opinion. You need to have an active culture of collaboration to merge the domain and the tactical skills into one. And this is important. You can't just have one of those, in my opinion.
Right, it's important, but as with everything else, so there are no solutions, there are only compromises, right? This learning thing does not scale well because there are only a few teachers and so many students, right? So we need to be practical in our approach and make sure we can do the best with the time and people we have. And that's why I gave this example with the gatekeeper and the code review, because we've given you enough rope for you to try and figure it out on your own. And then during that time, you're not engaging the reviewer of the code review, so they can do some useful work on their own during the same time. But in the end, you go and do the code review. And in most cases, the suggestions for the changes in the code review, again, will not be about your programming style or the technical approach you took to solve it. It will be, did you know that actually there is some context you're not aware of, and that's, in e-commerce, how things are done, or in coupons, in discounts, things like that.
The order of things,
additive, and those things are impossible to automate, right? We use continuous integration and a lot of static analysis tools, just to get rid of those nitpicking discussions, like as Brian said, how many spaces, brackets, things like that.
And that's great because Gary mentions CodeRabbit, right? CodeRabbit is great for that. And I think Copilot is great for, hey, am I designing this correctly? Give me some examples in this form. That's great. But it doesn't touch on this domain expertise idea, which is the most important part of code review. It's like Brian also mentioned, the Superman hack, right? Which is, I think, is a flying hack in games where it allows you to sort of ghost around and fly. I think that's the Superman hack he meant, where you have to ask yourself, is there a malicious act? Like, is there wrongdoing deliberately? Like, is somebody just doing silly things in the code base? Like if you watched Office Space, that person who stole, I think, 1 cent on every transaction, right? So it's like, oh, yes, implemented correctly, but did you sneak some hidden code into the code? And it's that domain specific stuff that we really want to touch on in code reviews. Everything else
anomaly detection on the ops level. So this is what you do on the ops as well. You basically do with your team.
But how do you do your pull requests? Do you block merge if it's not reviewed? That's the most important aspect.
I'm no longer part of that team and that company, but when I was there, I trust my teammates with my life,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So there are no blockers. Everybody can merge at their
Yeah.
will, even the juniors.
Mhm.
But they know what are the consequences of that. So
Yeah.
there is no. I really want to trust my team, and also
Yeah.
when working with junior developers or people
Mhm.
who are at the start of their professional journey,
Mhm.
usually they lack confidence, and that's a really ugly way to put it. But they
Absolutely.
just don't
Absolutely.
trust themselves that much.
They
So
don't trust themselves. Yes. Yeah.
But this is
confidence
good because
This
they
is good.
shouldn't.
that
Yeah.
confidence means that even you fuck it up, it will be okay, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
See,
So
and that's my point, because Gary mentions where is Gary? Gary has a great comment. Oh,
Look
Gary
at
actually
that.
wanted to join. Ryan, thank you for the commitment. Gary mentioned,
That
I think we are talking about where to place ourselves on the continuum between Dalai Lama and Stalin. Getting shades of Stalin from Dennis, he says. Right, because yes, I might come off as harsh, but what I'm advocating for is that if you say no, this PR, like the code review is like, please make changes A, B, and C. What do? Do you block it or do you merge it? Because I'm in the camp where I say, oh, looks great, but please change. Like, it's really important. Gary has to go. Ciao, Gary. Next
Ciao.
time. I'm in the camp that says, look, if you're policing, then police. If you're gatekeeping, then gatekeep. But I would advocate, if you're saying you're not gatekeeping, you're doing this for safety, then if there's a problem with a pull request and it needs to be reviewed, then merge it and open up a new branch and fix it. Because
there
at
is a
least that way you're making progress. Because if you're blocking the pull request and say, no, back to the drawing, but back to the supply chain, reject, back up the waterfall, back up the waterfall and do it again. It's blocking the pipeline. It's blocking the process. And if you ever did Price's Law, I have this restaurant analogy, kitchen analogy.
It's important.
My parents buy more bread than they eat, which
Me too.
means there's always a fresh loaf of bread and a stale loaf of bread.
Mhm.
Always.
It's normal.
And they always eat the old one first.
That's not normal. I always eat the new one first.
which means
lots of French toast.
by the time they finish the stale bread, the fresh bread is stale, and they buy new fresh bread. And that is Little's law. That is how queues work, right? So, and pull requests have exactly the same problem. If you say, I have a pull request here, and if I reject it, first of all, pull request, I assign it to you, and I start working on something else. And by that time, you reject it, and now I have two things to work on. So which one do I work on next? The old one or the new one? Normally, if I ask tech leads engineers, they would say, of course, the old one. It's waiting the longest. And I would always say, exactly. That's exactly how my parents eat bread. Because that is exactly what you shouldn't be doing if you want to get your pull request down to 0 as fast as possible. See, you should always close the freshest pull request first. If a pull request has been rejected,
Or you have a freezer, like Sebastian has mentioned.
or you have
The thing is that process is you can look at mean values and averages, how much it takes. Every pull request is a different.
It's about
story.
It's about incidency. It's not about pull requests, because you need to look at it from a qualitative perspective. If I have two doors and I say 50-50 chance there's a dragon behind it, if I open the door and it's okay, I merge. If I open the door and there's a dragon, I close the door because I can't merge. But now I have evidence that this door already had a dragon before. So now I need to understand, well, if the dice is fair, if I delete and start again, then it's 50-50. If I'm making improvements on it, there is now a much higher chance that this branch, this PR will get rejected again. Which means we should be working on the other things that are at least 50-50. Which means once you have a branch that has been rejected before, everything else should be expedited before it. Because that is the issue. That is the sacrifice you have to make if you have created a high chance of rejection on one of the large pull requests.
I see the logic in that, but people are emotional beings. They have scars.
Yes, and this is very unintuitive. I understand the math behind it. Even to me, it's weird, right?
Because one of the issues with asynchronous code reviews is that they go stale, right? That scenario where you work on the fresh one, and there are always fresh ones, so the other one gets stale and older and older and older. Yes. That's why people focus on the older one, usually because it's not even their call, right? They ask, okay, I have these 2 or 3 tasks. What's the priority? I cannot work on all of them. Someone else makes the decision for that. And if all of the other aspects of the quality of the code reviews are good, like it's really small, even it gets delayed by 1 day, eventually is going to be fixed and merged. But longer things, it will take a longer period of time. And the interesting part in the title of the stream was that you put as these 2 polar opposites, PRs and synchronous code reviews. And I believe from my experience that there are a lot of things that live in the middle, right? I agree, asynchronous pull requests, they take a lot of time. They have excellent application in all of the open source projects where there is a wider community, different time zones.
Time zone difference, low trust, multiple maintainers, ranks of developer, somebody who can merge, somebody who cannot merge. Because open source projects, by definition, are hierarchical. Not everybody has the same quality of write permission. And that's where pull requests were created from, because every commit has to go through the entire hierarchy of maintainer accountability. And internal companies do not work like that.
They do, and they shouldn't. But Kailan, can you quickly take a look at the LinkedIn messages? I had a question for you. Please, if you can answer that. Okay. So we actually had an interesting comment series today. That was cool. Okay, then thanks. Then I can do this. Wait a second, please.
We have a new hot join. Kaloyan,
we have.
I don't see the message. Is Kaloyan being booted off for another beard wearer?
It's not booted off. We will have four person.
Oh, we're gonna have 4 people in.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
So there's a reason why I'm so silent today.
Okay.
We need a manager for this show, actually.
I thought you were the manager.
No, I'm not the manager.
Now we see.
I'm the second waffler.
The second waffle. Wait, we have a waffle emoji. We can just waffle on. We can just waffle, and hello. We can just waffle for a bit while Adrian.
I'm hungry. Stop that. There he is. Okay, everyone, guessing. Okay, and this person who is joining now can answer to this comment now.
And his name rhymes with Brian Binster.
Exactly.
Hey, Brian.
What is my cooking doing there? I need to switch it. Okay, let's go. Hello, everyone. So nice to have you both here. So it's basically for you both, not the first time. I think Kaloyan, you were on the stream already as well, right?
Yeah.
No. Oh, it was in the after show thing, I think.
After show, yes, after show in book club.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Brian Finster, I think you are one of the more famous people on LinkedIn talking about exactly this topic quite a lot, right? And you are a maintainer I think, or contributor. I don't know, from Minimal CD. And I think a part of minimum CD is as well the idea of avoiding those kind of things, right? Or would you disagree with that?
Avoiding which kind of things?
Let's say
Ryan,
PRs and code reviews asynchronously.
well, Ryan had this question, right? Ryan asked, "Would you guys be willing to mandate that a team not do PRs?" I think that summarizes the question very well.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't mandate that a team not do it. So I think it's very important to distinguish that when we talk about pull requests, we're not always talking about asynchronous code review, right? I mean, those are
Correct.
You can either do it synchronously or asynchronously.
Fair.
I wouldn't mandate that teams not do pull requests. I would mandate that teams should really do synchronous code reviews whenever possible. It's not always possible. I mean, life gets in the way. Sometimes it's like, for example, the team I work on, we live in 3 different time zones, and I'm not necessarily going to wait for everybody to wake up just to do someone's code review.
Yeah, wake them up. This is something you can actually do. Having a tracker,
track down where they live and just ring the doorbell.
Or somebody. I've got one of my teammates is in Pacific time. He's just going to just not code because no one can do code review, or wait until someone's available the next morning. No, we'll just sometimes you do asynchronous code review, but whenever possible, you want to do synchronous code review because it's just a lot faster. You can just resolve issues immediately.
How do you both, Kaloyan and Brian, would do synchronized code reviews? What is that for you exactly? Maybe Kaloyan, then Brian.
We did that in 2 different implementations, in 2 different ways. Because we used to have a problem with asynchronous code reviews because monkey see, monkey does, right? That's what the assumption was how the pull request should be done. And there is this excellent book by Roy Oshiro called Elastic Leadership, and inside it he shares this idea where you should do code review meetings at the end of the day so that everybody is there. You share the context, the author and the reviewers are in the same meeting, so any questions get resolved immediately right there. The other thing is that for code reviews, there was this bottleneck problem with the reviewers, where it used to be that only senior developers had to be reviewers. But how are we going to train and teach the junior guys to mature enough so that they become reviewers as well? So we suggested that they're all on the code review meetings. They see where the discussion is going. They see what types of issues we actually discuss, not the nitpicking the spaces and stuff, but domain questions, architectural things, and all things like that. So in this way, the pull request and the code review meetings become a teaching tool as well, not just something to ensure the integrity of the code. And it worked great for 2.5 years, during which our team matured, right? Our juniors were not so junior anymore. And it turned out that this approach was actually a waste of time, because at the end of the day, for 1 hour or for 45 minutes, everybody is on a meeting, and not everybody will learn anything new there. And again,
at a certain threshold, right? At a certain level,
You had a meeting where you were discussing, and I think it might have been with Brian, I'm not sure, peer review code reviews, where you do something, you go and chase someone to code review it with you. We tried that at the start of this year when I was still in the company. At that moment, the feedback was really good because it freed up all of that time. But it's for a different team dynamic. Now, this is a lot more mature team. There are no juniors. There are no people to learn new stuff. They know the person to go to for questions during before the pull request, before the code review, but they also know who to chase to do the code review with. We created some sort of plan so that, again, nobody is a bottleneck because they have too many code reviews waiting for them. so that in this way everybody can still have time to do their job, but also contribute as code reviewers as well. So that's how we did sync code reviews. First, with a code review meeting for everybody, and earlier this year, where you just go and chase the person you want to code review this with you.
Right.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're 100% remote, but we also work on Gather. So we just say, hey, I've got a pull request, can you review it? And then we sit down and review it. We usually actually the whole team's sitting together. And so not everyone's involved with the code review, but everybody hears what's going on.
Remote in the same time zone?
Well, when our time overlaps, so we have 3 different time zones, but they're next to each other. Most of the day, we're overlap time zones.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of the day we can do peer review
With
synchronously.
it's not that I oppose pull requests. It's what you said in the I oppose asynchronous code review. And I think, but I just hate I just hate saying asynchronous code review because it can also be misinterpreted. What I'm really after is that I like going back to math and statistics and Little's law and these processes. And if I were to take advice from Minimum CD, for which you are a founding signer, like how do I title you for Minimum CD org?
Yeah, so it was me ranting at a bar, and a few of us put it together, and I'm one of the main contributors to it. Yeah.
Okay, so you're one of the main contributors and founder of the Minimum CD, which you can find on this link, minimumcd.org. I've also signed it. Adrian, have you signed it? Colin? Yeah. So one of the core tenets that I would really take to this discussion from everything that I'm hearing is that you should slow down your rate of development to the pace at which you can merge stuff. So if you code faster than you can review stuff, it doesn't make sense to now try to add more craft onto the review stage.
I mean, this goes right to trying to minimize batch size, right?
Yes.
We talk about all the time is the more that you deliver at one time, the more wrong you're going to be. I mean,
okay, one more time. My brain just poofed when I heard that.
Let me just lead back up, right? Our fundamental assumption should be that the product idea is wrong.
Yes.
That the feature we're working on is wrong in some way.
That the requirements are inaccurate or have holes, have gaps. That the person writing
understanding of the requirements is being misunderstood.
Or the person writing them didn't know how to articulate them correctly, or didn't know which detail to focus on, or which detail was misunderstood by the engineer, right? So there was this telephone problem.
Or by the time we deliver, the need actually changed.
Oh, yeah, it might become stale.
I wrote a blog post called "The 3 Wrongs," and this is fundamentally.
We know we had you on the show to discuss it.
Fundamentally the problem we're trying to solve, and so the more we deliver in one time, the more likely we are to have something wrong. And so we need to optimize everything for big wide pipeline as wide as we can, so that we can get very small changes out very frequently, so that we can find out what's wrong and fix it at minimum cost. Right. And so, if I've got processes that are batching up code that I cannot validate for real, then I should just slow down my coding. If I can only deliver once a day, once a week, maybe we should just code for one day.
I hate this idea of batching, because when I say batching, let me explain. So I'm sensitive to the word, not to the concept. Because when I say batching to tech leads, to engineers, what they understand is we're putting them together. And as we're putting them together, they will all go out at the same time. That would be a batch. But that's actually not the reality with pull requests. Because you're actually stacking them up like a queue, and they are not moving out together. I have no problem with batching if it goes on a ship, and then the entire batch just freaking clears.
But isn't it about batching commits and not...
So
it depends.
Both. I mean, it's
both.
Change into, so if we have asynchronous code reviews, it's going to incentivize larger batches of work in a particular pull request.
Correct.
But also it incentivizes me having another pull request I'm working on another branch while I'm waiting for this to get reviewed. Right, which is also a big problem. I mean, ultimately, you should be in a position where it's like, hey, I've got a pull request. Let me know when we can get it reviewed, and I'll start working on the next thing. Right? Finish a thing.
Yes. So work in progress 1 per significant unit of team, not per person. Not per person. That's really important.
Well, it's likely that your next unit of the next thing you're working on depends on that change being
exactly. And that's why stack diffing was invented. Stack diffing was invented so you wouldn't have to do this weird interactive rebase of I will assume my changes will be merged, so I am creating a new branch from the thing you're reviewing. That's diff stacking, or stack diffs, stacked diffs, and that usually happens in extremely large code bases where rejected PRs have a high opportunity cost to development, where somebody just says, well, I'm building a large feature and I'm gonna do 100 commits and I want you to review every one of them, and when you review them we merge them to mainline, but I will have one branch and I want that branch to zip into the mainline, not merge, but zip. Yeah, zip is the word I use to imply that I'm rebasing only the most recent reviewed code back into, right? So if you look at 2 branches, a merge would be going in this, but a zip is this, right? Where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commits, and they are being reviewed in order, and as they are being reviewed, they are being merged up into the main line. So stack diffing, diff stack, whatever, diff stacking creates that behavior. But from a GitOps perspective, that is extremely complex. Usually big tech companies have homegrown custom tooling to allow to do that without having a PhD in Git.
I mean, my opinion is that if you're an expert at Git, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah, like it requires way too much.
I often, when I saw a post, some days ago, with all the Git commands in it, and I thought to myself,
yeah,
I know 50% of them. I'm working every day, right? It's a little bit like who is actually typing those all day long? What I do is in my IDE, I push pull, commit, right? This is what I do. I don't do rebases. I don't do those things, and I actually don't allow rebases because they are unnecessary at all. You don't need them. It is more a repairing mechanism if you messed up, but it is not for.
PRs should be easily mergeable into mainline.
Exactly.
That's the core idea. Without ancestry sharing branches, right? Where I have branch A depending on branch B, depending on branch C, because in that they were developed in that order. And then branch A gets merged, branch B has a problem, and now you're working on branch C. Now somebody wants to help you with another feature that depends on branch B, and then you have C2 and C1.
Good engineering is about reducing complexity ongoing, right? This is something we should always do. So if we aren't able to reduce the complexity, we're doing something wrong. And having let's say an isolated branch or several of those at the same time is a high complexity we implement into our system. So all the things we have discussed in the last 20 minutes are all about managing unnecessary complexity. This is what we're talking about. So if you would just go for trunk-based development in the idea of continuous delivery, you won't have that complexity. Basically, what you do is you push-pull all day long. So if you want to push something, you need to pull first because your IDE will tell you need to. So you do. And you have basically your linter, your tests are running locally. You see that, okay, it's working. I can push that. CI/CD pipeline is giving you technical feedback about that. After maybe integrating with something else, I don't know. And that's it. That's what you need. If you just made a line of change, you have the very same process like building an entire new component in the last hour, but don't commit something which is in the last 2 days or something like that. That's not the idea of that. Commit it in the moment you have created it. And if you are afraid of, hey, my code can't break something, then put it behind a feature flag, put it behind something which gives you still the technical feedback of the integration, all this kind of stuff, but it's still not changing what the users will actually get. And this is not that hard. This is really not that hard.
The hard
do.
thing is that the tools aren't. The tools are part of the problem, right? So it's really hard to create the equivalent of a code review comment without blocking the merge. So most of the tools are optimized towards if I leave a comment, it blocks merge. Right? So because the way I review code is if there is gatekeeping or if there is approval, second set of eyes, I would approve it because I want it to get merged, but then I want it to be continued to be worked on, right? So it's like the test makes sense, but there's probably a benign refactor that you could do now to make a significant change. And usually how leaders police is that if I don't block the merge, the developer won't take it seriously. Like that's the stance, right? Because the alternative is merge it and create a ticket. But the problem is if you merge and create a ticket, the ticket goes to the bottom of the stack. Right? So if you want to really do code reviews synchronously or asynchronously without blocking merges, you need to have a mechanism where you talk to your team, where you're allowed to put something to the top of their attention stack, and they're allowed to reject that. Right? So I need to be able to give you feedback on the PR, if you're doing PR, an asynchronous code review, but I have to approve your changes, and you need to be able to reject my comment.
Well,
If that's how you want to run that show.
This week, this week on my team, I was reviewing code, and I made a comment that's like, "Hey, we really need to change this."
Yeah.
Because we got magic numbers in a spot. It's like, hey, we need to pull these magic numbers out. But it was we had other things we needed to get done that really needed that change to get merged. So we merged it and then made another change to address the code review comments.
Yes.
Right. It's just. You have to be smart about these things. You can't have rules. Yes. It's engineering.
Exactly.
It's funny that you mentioned Git because if I go back, we did not have a formal pull requests type of workflow when we were on Subversion. That's a whole different game, right?
Subversion was a different game. Yes.
Well, with Subversion, I remember I was very young.
It works differently, but I mean, I used we had required code reviews before merging.
Subversion has extremely expensive branches.
No pull request because you push everything.
But the branching is extremely expensive in Subversion. Right. So the team avoids creating branches as much as possible. In fact, you would only do. Were you the one commenting about Spotify, Kaloyan?
Yeah, but that's a different case, right? They were changing.
But that is what we used to do in Subversion.
When we were using Subversion, we didn't avoid branching. It's just that I had to go and automate it so it would take a lot less time.
Yeah. I remember creating a branch in one of my old projects back in 2012. Took 2 hours.
Yeah, so we had a branch would consist of branching about 800 repositories.
Yeah, exactly, because it has
800 files in the repository. I got it down to 90 minutes, but that was also including creating all the Anthill Pro configurations.
Yeah.
Submodules. It was so common to have submodules in Subversion. You have them in Git as well. You should avoid them at all costs. But but Subversion and submodules is like it's a hell to merge it if you have a deep dependency on all those kind of things. And we had that as well with the branch. We were so happy that the branch finally returned. And it was not lost. It felt like it was lost.
Yes, Subversion submodules is like package JSON, like node modules from hell. Like it's not.
It's a good idea, but you should avoid that. It's actually not necessary to do.
Is it a good idea? It was
the idea was sound.
The idea was sound
because
there are other solutions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, prior to submodules and Subversion, what we would do is copy paste code. But then it wasn't version control. I mean, it was version controlled in the wrong repository, right? So synchronization was impossible. So submodules were the solution to that because we didn't have package managers. We didn't have package JSON. We didn't have Yarn. We didn't have I don't know, Maven. We didn't have Maven right back then, right? Or at least
had
Sorry?
make files. We had
We had
make
make files, but you would have to get the make file definition configs from somewhere.
No, I was downloading new versions of packages from a website somewhere, and then
And committing
unzip
it
it.
into your repository.
You run your antivirus program before you actually copy that
Oh my God.
onto your computer, and then you make the automatic FTP upload and stuff like that. Those kind of things were normal.
There is one thing I want to touch on, because it's something that I would prefer not to have pull requests at all. Right? I mean, I would prefer just to push, to have all of my pre-commit hooks in place to know that I can reject bad change as often as possible and just push directly to the trunk. But I've always worked in regulated environments where, you're going to have the audit people ask me for CAB if you don't figure out some other way to have two eyes at every change. And I'd much rather have pull requests than CAB.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy because I don't have those regulations, and we really like that. We're pushing pulling all day long, and it's working very, very well. So there is no problem with that anyway. So you don't even have conflicts anymore. You don't have those things. It's actually just working. So it's great, but you need to sign it on some point. Maybe you can push and pull, and in the end of the day, you sign the last commits in some ways. There's maybe a good middle ground. At least 4 pairs of eyes, or let's say 2 pairs of eyes, reviewing the changes of the day and sign them. So it could be a middle ground, right? To develop quickly and have a review session in the end.
Ryan had another comment while you're still here, Brian. Ryan says, I like the analogy. I normally don't outright reject because I'm trying to balance the human emotional dynamic. So even when a big PR comes my way, it is still going to become a headache of a coaching session. And a lot of me thinking, wish we had just paired this from the start. He has a follow-up saying, I also find the more I experience pairing with certain teammates, the more possible it has become to do async PR reviews with them, because we are really getting used to each other's way of thinking and testing. So you can sort of preempt what a conversation with that other with your coworker would look like, because you're so close from pairing that you basically go back. I think Carlo, you mentioned something similar, right? So when at a certain maturity level, you just want to optimize the time you spend over pairing, like over meeting, and then you go back to, at least with the people that you trust, go back to a simpler handoff. It's a simple handoff style.
That's it. The people that you trust, and usually you have that with your partner, where you are able to finish each other's sentences because you have grown to think alike, and you trust that person. But even there, occasionally we won't be on the same page, right? And that's where meeting and discussing what the author actually really meant there helps. But again, we're talking about a huge investment. So to reach that level of not that trust, but working well together, understanding both the domain, the project, the client, and everything else, it won't happen in a month, right?
You said huge investment compared to what?
Time-wise, that it needs to grow organically. There are no any shortcuts to do that.
But
even if
you
someone
imply that it's much bigger than something. What is the alternative?
No, the alternative is to communicate it, to talk it off, right? And again, it's going to take more time, but that's how you grow it, right? And the more we talk now, the less we'll need to talk later.
Fair.
There will be a better and deeper understanding of the project we are working on the requirements, on the workflows, on everything else. But that's a very human thing, right? That's
absolutely
not something that can be automated and improved.
I mean, software engineers in general, like we've created an environment, we've created communities and societies, entire engineering societies, where we have sort of romanticized this grit of working alone, of being autonomous, like over autonomous, where you can sort of optimize for a lonely environment, and you can sort of do everything alone by yourself and only rely on asynchronous feedback. And I think that is
you know what cured me of that?
what cured you of that.
We cured of that. The thing that cured me of that was when we got our first team up and running doing CD.
Mm-hmm.
And you find
What specifically?
What specifically?
Yeah.
Just the level of collaboration it took to get that done. To be able to deliver to production daily. And I'm you know,
Would you
we
say
were
that
deliberate-
that was forced
We were-
collaboration or incentivized collaboration or?
well, I mean, it was forced in that we couldn't have done it without the collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah.
we had a team goal that we were going to go to production multiple times a day.
Mhm.
That was just our goal, right? Is we were going
So
to
what
deliver
kept everybody inspired was that challenge.
Yeah. And I was making a comment on LinkedIn earlier today about the fact that the most effective way I've ever seen to mature a team is to go after the goal of daily delivery. If you
Mhm.
want to be a top performing team, you may not achieve it, but try. Go solve the
Aim
problems.
higher.
And a lot of those problems will be technical, but more of them will be how we work together as a team.
What? I worked with a team last year, well, 2 teams actually, and the teams are different time zones, different cultures, different parts of Europe, different industries. They both had exactly the same symptom, resistance, on their most junior parts of the team, which is I do not want to over pair, because I don't want to interrupt that other person.
Mhm.
Right? And to me, that's, yes, it's benevolent. You know, you hear it and you're like, okay, yeah, makes sense. You don't want to interrupt them because they're doing something important, right? And you're not. So you don't want to interrupt them.
I disagree. I
Or
totally
maybe,
disagree.
Or maybe you're doing something. No, I disagree as well. I'm just steel manning
Yeah.
their case.
Just
Um,
wanted to make sure.
Yes, we are in agreement.
Because
You know,
maybe it's
because
hot
the
today.
best light- Because the best light, and in the best light that I can say, okay, they're doing something solo and intimate, and I'm doing something solo and intimate, and it's inappropriate for me to interrupt them. But working on a project together, working on the features together, on the same product, on the same team, I don't think it should be solo and intimate. Like, I don't think, you know, when I implement a feature, I don't want to talk to my team as if, hey, I'm going to implement the feature now, please look away. You know, as if, you know, I'm getting naked and changing clothes, you know. It's some people have that
This is a
approach,
form
that-
of isolation you don't want to have
It's
in a
a-
team.
it's a
Collaboration
form
is
of
collaboration,
isolation,
which means working together all day long.
Exactly.
Sometimes maybe you need to have something extremely important to do in the next 15 minutes, then go, you know, Brian mentioned Gathertown, you go into an isolated area where you are alone for yourself, but get out of there as soon as you are, let's say, it's
But for
achievable.
mental health
available
reasons,
again. Yeah.
But for mental health reasons, not for productivity reasons. Right? Take a break when you're just overstimulated, or if there was a conflict and you just need to take a step back, zoom out, and reassess what's going on, or if you got into a heated argument or got overexcited about architecting something and you sort of lost track of time and over-engineered something by accident, then it's good for mental health reasons to step out, like isolate, go sit down, have a coffee, go for a walk, meditate, just chill, be alone, don't work, and then come back and rejoin the team and help solving problems. That's great, but don't do it for productivity reasons. I hate when people say, "Oh, I'm much more productive when I'm left alone."
We have a great productive team. Everyone is just working on its own, right? It's a great team then in the moment.
But then it creates this void, and then you have
Yeah.
these long stretches of lonely hyper productivity, which isn't hyper productive, and then you have to fill the gaps with synchronous, asynchronous, this. Like, you know, collaboration is then sort of tacked on to this system like a tumor, like a cancer.
But
And then-
that's one of the extremes, right? I have a slightly different, actually, a rather different observation on this one, because on the other way, on the other side of the scale, is people are being interrupted all the time. And our work is intellectual work. You're going to do your job when you have huge chunks of time when you're not interrupted. So no messages, no notifications, no people asking you questions or I don't know, right? So for my team, again, I was in such a situation where we had a team with juniors and seniors at different maturity. There is no way to improve the juniors other than work with them, but there needs to be a balance, right? Still, and I was blessed with a really good team where people were indeed autonomous, right? And we had such a conversation on LinkedIn earlier this week where how much time would any single developer take to solve something on their own? Adrian's suggestion was 15 minutes. My experience is 2 hours, right? Give them enough time to research it, and when they come to you, you know they have depleted any other sources or ideas for them to solve this. But give them the opportunity. Respect other people's time, right? Give them the opportunity to work on their jobs without being interrupted. And again, that's a scaling problem because there are a lot more teachers than students. There are a lot more people that need answers than people with the answers. And in a
it's a triangle. There are a lot more there are a lot less high performers than everybody else.
The majority of the questions will be able to be answered at the lower level of the pyramids, right? Among your peers, because they usually might have had a similar problem, or you just need a rubber ducky type of development where you just put it out, someone to hear it, and while you're speaking, you find a solution. Again, that's another type of collaboration with your team. And only the difficult and problems get answered at the upper level of the pyramids.
So I have the what I consider the best argument for not going off and working on your own on something and then handing it in when it's done is that you're never going to have time to onboard the rest of the team into how it works, which means that you own it and you're going to support it. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get woken up.
Yeah.
So spread the joy. And the other thing I wanted to mention quickly is that we've been talking about code review and pull requests, but even in a regulated environment, pair programming means that you can go directly to trunk because you've got UIs on every change. Code review is concurrent with development. I've heard people say, "Oh no, you get like some sort of Stockholm syndrome or something." It's not true.
I agree.
And the results are it's much more efficient because 2 people thinking about problems together solve the problems a lot faster than 1 person does.
My biggest gripe with pull requests, so asynchronous code review, is that whatever I teach, if it's tactical, if it's coding related, it's in a pair ensemble, right? So it's multiple hands on multiple keyboards with usually 3-4 people, 2 keyboards, 2 screens shared. Because we do multiple problems at the same time, probably for different context. I love that level of intensity and collaboration. And those are 99.9% of the time obstructed by the team's habitual way of how they do PRs. It's like, okay, now we reviewed it, now we coded it, but now we need to create like 7 pull requests or 3
I really like value stream mapping and doing a value stream map of the pull request process. I mean, I can't tell you how many teams I value stream maps on, where you go look at the code review process and you can just say, look at all the wasted time. And most of it's wait time, and you've got all this handoffs and context switching back and forth, and having conversations in the comments instead of just talking to each other.
Adam,
just a massive waste of time.
Adam Thornhill has this book. Your code is a crime scene. I love it. It's like it's doing code forensics.
It's true, yeah.
He has a great example on
a massacre sometimes.
Yeah, just look at your code, look at the pull request, and then diff the branch, pre-review and post-review. If your process is doing some significant change for the amount of time that it, for the amount of disruption that it causes, then the changes post-review should be extremely significant compared to the original work.
Yeah.
If they are not, then you're wasting your time. Then you're just doing some weird witch hunt. You're looking for some black swan event in branches that are unlikely to have them. Because the black swan events happen when somebody is deliberately trying to hide something. And those are usually supply chain attacks, not directly on the code reviews.
Well, and also one of the things, I know we're on short time, my favorite thing about Extreme Math is where they also require a second level senior code review because the first code review wasn't good enough. That's my favorite to watch because you can just look at all the money we're spending on nonsense.
I'm glad my sarcasm detector is still able to pick up the nuance in your voice, Brian.
But the senior too will feel very well. It's it's always about this self-esteem and stuff like that. It's self-worth and all those kind of. This is very important for people.
It's not enjoyable. That's senior level 2, and I know it. I know you mean it sarcastically, but that's senior level 2 doing that second code review. Nobody enjoys doing that.
Well,
because it feels like you're cleaning up after somebody else's mess. It's not an enjoyable.
But that senior's not doing his job.
Correct. Yeah, because it should be nurturing. It should be facilitating, teaching them how to prevent creating the bad code in the first place, which is that first example that I used with the different levels of ELO chess. But you should aim high and miss, rather than do it badly and then get feedback.
This is like if you would be a pyromaniac and you have someone helping you and you discuss it every time with a fire, the next house burning, and this time it's burning not so good. As you need to prevent the person from burning that house. This is the idea, and not how this house is burning. That's the idea behind that. So it's,
one of 3 different dysfunctions. One is incompetent management mandating this process.
Mm-hmm.
Item number 1, or an arrogant developer saying that only I know best and all code must come through me.
Yeah.
That's actually the second one is in my opinion, the more dangerous one because the first one is you can spot that from miles away, but the other one is like a cancer in the team. So you don't want to have this elitism. This is extremely dangerous because everyone in the team is then take a look at this one person. This is the bar. Oftentimes way too high and wrong at the same time. So junior developers tend to become silent and are not confident anymore to do something because they get blamed by this person. Oftentimes covered up in, I don't want to blame you, but I want to challenge you. But challenging against my own thoughts, which are the actual bar I just set up, which is nonsense because this person makes the same amount of mistakes like every other human as well. And this is the most dangerous thing in my opinion.
I've seen a third scenario that is sort of self-derogatory, how do you call that?
Sorry.
I don't, it's this idea of, we should do code reviews and pull requests because nobody is smart enough to do it right? Where there's this level of over hesitancy, being too careful and trying to get this idea of, nobody can get it right without at least 2 sets of code reviews. So everything that we do has to go through 2 sets of code review. And again, it's painting the wrong picture. It's painting this picture.
We can't do our job then, right?
Exactly. But the solution is that if you are in such an environment, your best bet would be to train everybody to pair so that they learn how to work in a team, and then hire one person who can teach the team something new. Because if you get the teamwork well, once you inspire one person on the team with a new idea, with a new concept, with a different approach to a certain problem, it'll spread through the team like wildfire. But the good stuff, right? But if there's no collaboration, if there's no teamwork, if everybody's individually sort of doing their own thing and they're not very good at it, then once one person improves, they will get banished, right? Because they will differentiate themselves and it will become unwelcome if the team doesn't have good teamwork, right? So
that's actually a very bad culture. So this is not an engineering culture, and this is a very toxic human culture. You don't want to be in.
All examples of different nuances of low psychological safety in either a subset of an organization or just a part of a department, or in a department. For example, the differentiation between a team that is local and a team that is outsourced, or offshored, or just staff augmented, and then there's this full-time employee part of the team and the contractor part of the team, or there's a product part of the team and the engineering part of the team, or a tester part of the team and the QA part of the team and the engineering part of the team. These can all happen not within the team, but as you cross these boundaries of the silos. And the pull requests then reinforce the bad behavior. We have 5 more comments. Should we go through them real quick?
Yes, please.
So Ryan helped me out. He has called it self-sabotage. Yes, I like that. Thank you for helping me explain it a little bit better. Which one should we address? Yanis we didn't have yet. And then we go through Ryan's comments. Yanis mentions PR lifespan is very short compared to the total dev flow. From your experience, what do you suggest to do in pre-PR steps to improve PR outcomes? Kaloyan, Brian?
Make sure that you've got pre-commit hooks running, linting and formatting, and the standardized with static code analysis as much as you can. Make sure all the tests are running, and agree as a team what we're reviewing for. I mean, the things I'm reviewing for is the key: is do the tests make sense relative to what we said we were going to test? Is the code easy to read? Is there any obvious architectural or things like magic numbers or that sort of thing? That's not good. Let's not do that. My attitude is if it takes more than 10 minutes to review the code, we're probably doing something wrong. Either the code review is too big or we're reviewing for the wrong things.
Yeah, there's a lot of linting and similar activities that you should be doing in the code editor, in the IDE, or at least on the developer's machine.
Well, and don't depend on remembering to do it. Automate it.
Yeah,
right?
Automate it.
I have all my
block you, yeah.
Pre-commit hooks, so that I cannot commit without those pre-commit checks running, because I'm trying to protect my pipelines. I mean, that's the first level of your pipeline is before it leaves your desk.
Yeah,
so, automate it.
Very good comment. Kaloyan, do you have a comment on this?
We're getting more comments.
Basically that's what we did. We automated as much as we can. Something else, imagine you are back in school, you have a homework and you need to read your homework in front of the whole class. That's a good thing to consider before doing the pull request, because what you write, someone else is going to read. And all of the things we've discussed many times, like naming your variables, right? How to structure your code, how to structure everything so that it's easier to read and to show your intent. But
to lower the barrier for others to actually engage with your stuff to review.
If you think about it, that type of advice is not applicable to pull requests. That's something you need to do all of the time. It's just a good time to remind yourself all these changes you did, someone else is going to read now inside a pull request, and hopefully in the future as well. So consider the reader, consider what your audience is, and do that.
My advice would be don't sequence the pipeline. Usually what I see people do is have completely disruptive pipelines where they do linter checks, and then they do unit tests, and then they do integration, but like in sequence. And then they do build, and then they do artifact, and deploying to stage, and then they do end-to-end tests. But you should not sequence them like this, because you want the most significant failure to happen as soon as possible. So if my end-to-end tests fail, and my linter fails, I want to run the end-to-end tests first, so that I want to get that failure first, because if there's a behavior problem and a linter problem, I want to tackle the behavior problem first.
So I run as much as I can in parallel. I mean, I'm going to say, if there's no reason for this to wait on this, it's going to happen at the same exact time. Right? I mean, your pipeline you should parallelize.
Should be flat. Pipeline should be flat. Ryan I see it as a waste of time to implement something by myself. If I had invited a junior to do it with me, I would have been implementing, coaching, reviewing, and team bonding all at the same time. Several boats with one stone. This is actually my preferred approach of how to work with teams as a consultant, as a coach, as a collaborator. Comments on this, gentlemen?
I see a lot of parallels with being a parent because that's how you
Yeah.
you do it with your children, and at some point they just need to have the confidence that they can that thing which we used to do together, now they can do it on their own, and that's part of that process as well.
Modeling.
Not just the technical skills, becoming more proficient in your profession, learning the technical stuff, but actually having that confidence. And that type of an approach is an excellent opportunity to show that even you make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be that.
And how you behave when you do. Yeah.
Right.
I need to quickly interrupt. I think Brian needs to leave.
Brian has
Thank you very much for being with us. Again,
awesome
great
hot
addition.
joint today. Great idea, Adrian.
That was a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
I really love this episode. Like the way we set it up, the hot joints and everything, the topic. Pretty cool. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks a lot. Can we go to this layout? I don't like that one.
You don't like that layout?
No.
Okay. It's zoomed in, right? And
It's strange.
the quality on the video changes.
But I don't have much time as well. So we have, I would say we wrap up, we really go quickly through those comments, but not like more into, let's say, not a deep dive anymore.
I'll sequence them and just read them out.
Do it.
Ryan says, if I have to submit a PR asynchronously, then I have to type out the context, Jira ticket, screenshot, etc. You need to do the review. If I have to type all that up, it makes me less likely to want to do a small PR. Great. Right, so this is a dysfunction between big and small batch size.
Agree on that.
Yeah. Tell me more about your reasons for not liking requiring the second review or third set of eyes. Okay, we discussed it earlier. I think that's a bit... We can get back to that next time. Self-sabotage. Okay, thank you. I think the issue isn't that people don't know or aren't capable of doing a good PR review. The issue is that people don't do a good PR review because it's easy to just say looks good to me. Putting an extra required reviewer makes the reviewers even more likely to fear they can just do a... Yeah, so if I dilute your accountability as a reviewer, then you'll just do a worse job.
I think
incentivize it to do a worse job.
I think the problem is that we're still thinking of a review like, hey, a review is something I need to give someone, and this one needs to spend of time. Yeah, but it is always this one-on-one idea. So having reviews like in a team, Kaloyan mentioned that with a book. I forgot the name, but this was actually a good thing. So we have written about that. I even have that in the article. I just posted it on LinkedIn. I posted here for the YouTubers as well and Twitchers. We have that here as well. So having sometimes the possibility to review as a team will actually give you an advantage in that moment, because you won't have that problem like, hey, looks good to me, because in that moment when you have a lot of people, you are differently committed. So we are humans. There's always psychological aspects into that, like a culture. So if we are in the middle, that's the homework stuff, Kaloyan just mentioned. So if we stand in front of others and we need to explain, we act differently. If the more alone we are, the more we have the tendency to maybe we get away with something. And this is the reason I don't like to be alone as a developer, because of resistance. I'm very, resistance. Just keep it like that. So we should not fall into waffling again.
I have to mention, next week we're having an episode where you and I are refactoring a React component. And I recall our first sessions where you and I together coded for the first time, and you coded in my repository and I coded in your repository. And I remember how great that feeling was of, I don't have to work alone, and then you shit on my work on the code review, but instead you're in the room and I can just directly tell you, hey, I'm not very good at this. Can you explain this? Because you just show me real quick. Because I'm a quick learner, and I'll pick it up quickly. But if you show me one thing now about how to do this in your code base, I'll then pick it up, and then I won't make a fool of myself doing it 20 times the wrong way. Right? So
That's when you fail. Failing is not the first time. The first time is learning. Doing it wrong several times is then failing.
Yeah, failing is good. So fail often, fail publicly, fail in front of everybody, so that everybody knows that
And early.
it's not that
early.
difficult.
Fail fast. Fail fast,
fast,
right? Like,
yeah.
Don't batch the failures together, especially correlated failures that all depend on one key decision. And then somebody says, "Yeah, you're right. You were right."
But
This
to
was the
all
wrong
this,
decision.
to all these phrases of failing, you should always add, but not multiple times on the same problem. That's one of the things. So
Don't scale your failures. Yeah, learn
Yeah.
from them and then scale the right solution sooner.
So we have still one from VPXAs.
Yeah, I just quickly showed them. He says, for someone starting the video, how will you explain in 2 sentences the difference between code review and PR reviews, knowing both have review as a keyword? I would say, look, imagine you had a pull request. If there was an issue with it, I would merge it, and then I would give you a review on trunk. That's the best example I can give between pull request review and code review, because I want to review code post merge, because that's the stable code. Sometimes I'm hesitant to review code pre-merge because I know the code sometimes will change during the merge. So I would prefer just purely relying on code review that happened on trunk. I'm very hesitant to say
The PR review. The PR review is the stopping one, right? Where you have
the blocking one, the
basically
asynchronous.
this one or this one,
Yes.
and either it goes through or not. And you don't want to have that, because if you are not capable of pushing something which is allowed to go on trunk, you are not allowed to push. So someone should revoke you the right to push, and this is push a
Like
PR or something
rejecting-
like that. You need to learn that
rejecting
first. This is just a function in the moment.
And I would also say PRs are different in public repos than private repos. Pull requests are requests to pull. If I reject a pull request, what I'm communicating for example, an open source project where I'm the maintainer, if you open a pull request with a new idea, with a new feature, and you open it to me and assign me because I'm the maintainer, you want me to pull from your repo, from your branch, into my branch in my repo. When I'm rejecting that pull request, I'm not saying, hey, there's an issue, fix it. When I'm rejecting that pull request, I'm saying, I think this is a bad idea and doesn't fit into our project. I'm rejecting it. i.e., I will never merge this. Try again with a slightly simpler idea. Right? Because that's what rejecting a pull request should be. I will never merge this. But companies usually don't have a culture, or at least a strategy for how to deal with such merges, where you say, oh no, like we decided, we just had a product meeting, we will never merge this. And then I see developers constantly hesitate deleting it. I see a lot of, when I start coaching teams that have this dysfunction, I see a lot of 2-3 month old pull requests that were never merged because the work was abandoned, right? So it took too long, so they got reprioritized onto an emergency. Now they have a branch that will never be merged.
It's like a piece of old cheese in the fridge, right?
Yeah,
Not those
and they
pull
say,
requests.
no, we need that. Once we get back to it, we need to restore it, and it's in the freezer right now. No, just delete it. It'll be much better to start from scratch when it actually becomes important, because when it does become important, the requirements will also change, and the old PR that has not been merged was created on some completely obsolete set of requirements. Dipping that is much more difficult than deleting it and starting from scratch.
That's a skill you need to train yourself, because people see, oh, I have invested all of that time writing that code, and now I have to delete it. That time it's wasted. Actually, it's not, because you learn a lot doing it. Even if you did it wrong and for whatever reason it was not merged, you can still review it before you merge it, just to make the same sort of analysis and research. And in this way, it's not going to be wasted. But subconsciously, people are afraid of. I spent so much time on this. How am I going to delete it? Well, like this. People delete and throw stuff all the time. You just need to train yourself to accept it. And it's harder if someone senior than you or some of your peers deletes your code, because we're
Mhm.
back to that conversation
Yeah.
about psychological.
If I delete your branch, it's like a slap, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really tough. It's really tough.
I'm already dropping my links because I need to go.
I'm giving a hint. I'm starting to roll background music, so I'm giving.
In Germany, we call that Rauschmeistermusik, which means is what you play in the disco 5 o'clock in the morning when they want to get you out.
You keep increasing the volume when you turn it off.
Music, right? The elevator music.
Okay, thank you, Kaloyan, so much for joining us today.
This was great. Thank you.
The leader of the our Tech Journey fan club. This is the tagline, right?
Nice.
Yeah, you need to have a beard for this, by the way. If you're male, right? And glasses, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. The music gets so loud I can't concentrate anymore, and I think we should leave now. See you next Wednesday. Every Wednesday, actually, at the same time. 4 CET, Central European Time.
We have
Yeah.
a plan now. So the next
Oh.
episode will be refactoring a React component. So Adrian and I will be showing you some tips and tricks on how to make React components cleaner, following some good practices. We'll also get some things wrong, so you'll also see us learn whether our understanding of best practices has changed. And 2 weeks from now, we'll have Sander Hugendorn. He's a very prominent speaker in Europe and a CTO, and he'll basically tell us the proper way of staying agile without any of the fluff from methodologies and certifications, and he'll have some good advice on how to get unstuck, especially if you're a CTO or in a similar role, and you're in a non-big tech, non-fan company. So
If
that's
you
the
haven't
next 2
watched
weeks.
any of the videos of Sander's presentation, go and watch them. He's really fun. So
Yeah, he is a
it will be-
really good storyteller. And before I forget, we had a technical issue with Maria's stream last week, and we sort of split the stream to host Gary, because Gary was a very generous hot join during the episode. So we are scheduling a follow-up with Maria, and I believe it will be the next Friday. We've had some technical issues now several times with Maria, so we figured let's do it on a Friday, so that we still do the Wednesday episode to guarantee that we can get everything done correctly. So yeah, that's what we have. We'll have some updates on whether the Maria stream happens and when and exactly how. And see you next time, gentlemen. Thank you. I had a lot of fun.
Bye.
Great topic. Ciao. Don't forget to subscribe or give us some comments in LinkedIn or repost. I will drop a link with some goodies like 2 weeks from now into this event. So if you comment something, repost something, then
Come on, let's shut down the stream already. See you next Wednesday.
Ciao.